Hey guys, Bethany with Ruff Beginnings Rehab Dog Training, and I have something to share with you. It's a thought, something I want everyone who uses any sort of training tool to keep in mind. So this training tool could be an electric collar or a prong collar like what we use. It could be a slip leash. It could be a pet corrector. Anything that causes your dog to settle down or acts as a punisher for a really bad decision. This video is for you. If your dog is so sensitive that just a really firm tone of voice makes them be like, whoa, even this video is for you, okay? And if you hear anything in the background, look, I just groomed Mia, so she's fluffy and hanging out with me. Little eye candy for you guys, doggy eye candy. Okay. Let's talk about using training tools, expectations for your dog. Let's say that you did a training with a trainer. Maybe it was one-on-one lessons. Maybe it was a board and train, and they taught you how to do off-leash training with your dog. You can't go home and just correct your dog who's off-leash in the backyard and won't come to you. You can't do that. In my opinion, you shouldn't do that. You have relationship work to do. That means you're setting a tone in other areas of the dog's life to establish a relationship of earned affection and respect. And you have to put in the practice. An obedience command like come takes repetitions. It takes work. It takes hundreds of repetitions, not only from a trainer, but then again with the owner, before you should expect that electronic device or any training tool to work. We do not put a prong collar on a dog, put them in the yard, tell them to come, and when they don't do it, correct them. We put in tons of work and repetition to teach them what it means before we hold them accountable. Even though they're trained, they understand what it means. The owners have to do the same thing because usually they have relationship work to do as well. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of dogs that they're just great from the moment they go home, and I'm super happy for those owners. But most of the dogs we see, they have anxiety or arousal issues of some sort, or fear, something like that, where the owners have to rebuild their relationship with their dog, which is very difficult. It takes 10 times longer than for a new person to do it, okay? All right, so another example is your dog is in the house and they have anxiety, and maybe they were doing pretty good after you worked with them a little bit with training. They were doing pretty good. So you started giving them free run of the house. Fast forward a month later, they start barking a little bit here and there. And you correct them, but you don't change the structure in the house. You still give them tons and tons of freedom, access to you. You just let the rules go again. So now, fast forward a few months later, and they have a barking, anxious fit. And you seriously correct them for it via training tool, tone of voice, pet corrector, whatever it might be. I think that's unfair. Dogs are animals. They don't rationalize. So their relationship with you is really important in how they view you. So if you have a dog that you know has anxiety and you're giving them all this freedom in the house, then you set them up to fail, and then you correct them. You're betraying their trust because you aren't building a relationship with them of expectations and consistency, which builds confidence in their role in the world and their role with you. I'm telling everyone this because I know tons of people out there that are really doing the structure. They're trying to change their relationship with their dog for the better, and they're still really struggling, and they will always have a serious element of structure needed. It's not going to go away in order to have control over their dog in really bad moments. However, I also know that there are some of you out there that I've never met, but I know there are some of you out there that use punishment in a way to demand compliance without putting in the work and the effort to create a relationship with the dog, but better yet, without understanding what dogs need. And maybe you're not spoiling them with affection. Honestly, that a lot of times, that's not what it is. It's just freedom in a yard or in a house to make their own decisions and go wherever they want, but they happen to have anxiety or territorial issues or this, that, and the other thing. So they're not being set up to understand their role in the life you've given them, okay? I hope that makes sense. Now, I know there's lots of nuance in between. There's tons of people really doing the work and feel like they're not seeing a lot of progress. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely know that that's the case. And I'm not saying that you have to do a ton of obedience training repetitions with your dog in order to correct your dog. That's not what I'm saying either. Because it's not even about the obedience. It's about how you've set the dog up in your home based off of their issues, either genetically or created by circumstance. So for instance, if you have an aggressive dog, you don't have that dog off leash where you might see another dog and then just correct them for flying off the handle. There's so much other stuff that you have to work on first so they understand what's expected of them. So when you do correct them, they have a default to go back to you or to settle down or to listen to something else. Doesn't even have to be obedience, just body language coming from you. That comes from practice. Some dogs need more practice than others. Some dogs need very little practice, very little understanding, and they'll have a complete turnaround. Some dogs just need less pressure put on them, and within a few weeks, they'll be 10 times better, just with less pressure and more structure. We've seen that with Mamba. We have a Cane Corso right now, and with just by being in a new place, adding tons of structure and taking pressure off of her to be social, she has calmed down dramatically and doing very little active work with pressure. So what I mean by that is dogs aren't running into her face and we're creating a scenario to correct her reactivity. Just by taking pressure off of her, 90% of the reactivity has dwindled away. And adding structure, that's the other thing, adding structure to her daily routine. There is no freedom to run around and do what she wants, sniff this where she wants, and be alert at this when she wants. My point is just that I hope that makes sense to some of you guys out there. And if you feel like you might have fallen in that trap, maybe you've spent a few months and your dog is just kind of roaming around the house and doing what they want. But then when they bark at the door, which they have a previous history of, and then you seriously correct them, but you know it's a legit anxiety or territorial issue, you're giving them run of the home the rest of the time. It's pretty confusing for dogs, I'll be honest. Every dog is different, but just I want you guys to keep that in mind. Let's not be afraid to tell our dogs when they're misbehaving, but let's also be aware of when we're setting them up to fail. And the expectations do not match the relationship with your dog. And it is your duty, if you have an animal, it is your duty to understand that animal, what their signs are, how they feed off of things, to understand animal body language. It's your duty. It's your job if you want to own an animal of any kind. Anyway, guys, I hope that gives you some food for thought, and have a great week.